if you were going into a classroom to observe a classroom teacher. We all know that. It's not the same. But it can be the same. You're going to see the same things. So as I've seen the top three pieces of the rubric that PE teachers struggle with, can you guess one for me? What do you think the top three that they struggle with are?
Oh, what indicator?
Yep, what indicator?
Thinking,
Questioning. And what's the third one?
problem solving.
Problem solving. Those are the top three that they struggle with the most. And if you see that within your teachers, in that post-conference or before, if you're just doing walkthroughs and you see it, have a conversation with them about planning out their lessons, which I hope they're doing, and having those things already written. Because you could have a list of questions, higher order thinking questions written. You might not get to all of them, but at least you have them there in your lesson so that you can use them. So, one thing that is unique about Maury County is when I was here, we went through the whole PEP grant, we got new curriculum, K-12, and that's not showing out, so that's not helping you. So one thing that is great for you guys as administrators is they have pacing guides. So they should be following, love states technology, it's just great. So they should be following their pacing guide. And within their pacing guide, there's certain lessons and activities that they should be following. And one thing that's different, that's unique, not necessarily different, but unique about Maury County is that you do have that. And when you walk into their gym, they might not be doing just one activity that day. Because they should be touching on all four of these components. Okay? Fitness and health academic content, intentional fitness, related activities, motor skill development, and social emotional safety. They should be hitting on all four of those. So they might be doing an activity where they're working on motor skill development, and then turn around and be doing a different activity within the same lesson that relates to fitness. And I think that's sometimes a struggle for administrators who don't have a background in physical education, but this is where it definitely comes into point where your PE teachers need to have that, be the professional and have that conversation with you. So, one other thing that is, I don't want to use the word issue, but is hard for administrators to be able to know what the teacher is supposed to be teaching is the current PE standards. They are super broad, and you can pretty much put anything into them. So for instance, the current standard, here's a current standard for K2. Movement forms, motor skills, and movement patterns. That's the standard. That could be a bazillion different things. So, I am glad to tell you that we are currently in the process of revising the PE standards. And I will show you an example of them. And it is going to help you, it's not only going to help the teacher, it is greatly going to help you as an administrator evaluating your teachers. So here is an example. Look at that elementary. So, they're set up different now. We've done away with checks for understanding, done away with levels, everything that all the other subjects have gone away from, we've gone away from also. So, within the new standards, you have what's called the component. Okay, so for in this case, it's motor skills. The subcomponent is locomotor. And then you have the broken down standards by grade level. Grade-specific standards. So, for instance, if you walk into a kindergarten class, this is the standard that they might have written on the board. Performs locomotor skills while maintaining balance. And you can see they're supposed to be working on hop, gallop, slide, and skip. Now, as an administrator, does that tell you exactly what they're supposed to be doing that day? Compared to... Well, where did I do it? Compared to that standard, movement forms, motor skills, and movement patterns, does that give you more detail of exactly what they're going to be doing that day? You see how that's going to help you as an administrator?
Now, will they still break down with the fitness and health and?
Yep.
all that stuff?
Yep.
And that's for all grades?
All grades. Yep.
So you said Maury County had pacing guides, so our pacing guides will need to be updated.
Updated to go with these standards, correct. And with these standards, we go to state board in April for first read, the same time as math and ELA. Then second read in July. 16-17 school year will be what we call a training year. And then 17-18, they'll be fully implemented. So they'll be on the same schedule as math and ELA. But I feel like, and the committee that put these new standards together really felt strongly, not only is it going to be better for the teachers, but also we were really thinking about you guys as administrators and how it would impact you and impact your evaluating your teachers. So just know that that is coming too. And I think that's going to help a lot when you're evaluating, because you're going to know exactly what to look for, exactly what those students should be mastering by the end of that lesson. So now that I've kind of gone through all of that, give you the little rigmarole, now I want to know what you need from me. Like, what questions do you have? You're here for a reason. So what struggles? We're halfway through the year. You've probably done half your evaluations. So what struggles are you having? Don't want to talk at once.
I think you basically answered one of our questions, because what do we need to go in and look at, and what do most of the PE teachers struggle with that problem solving, thinking, and questioning? So you just saying make sure on their plans, have that down so you can look at it. Because they may not actually get on, but we know it's embedded
Right.
into that instruction.
Right. And I think with those three, it's PE teachers are getting our kids moving. That's what we do. We really struggle when we go to that cognitive side, that cognitive piece. That's where we struggle. I struggle with it, you know. And so if we think about it prior to going in, then we'll have it down and we'll have, you know, better grasp of what we can use to hit those areas.
I think when I did it, because, and this is my first year doing all this, so I'm kind of processing everything, but when I did it and it was an announced visit, the PE teacher was totally on target, had all the questions, had all of it. I struggled more when it was an unannounced, and I had to go in and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's just anybody else, if that's just me, but
That's what they need to
well, yeah, no, that's true. No, but I just felt like with PE, I'm trying to like, okay, listen to what are they saying over there, and what's she saying, what are they saying over there, and how are they doing that?
Even it's like the objective itself being written or something.
Yeah, because you couldn't
state it.
because unannounced it was not written somewhere, but when they knew I was coming, they brought a big board and they put the thing. So
Yeah. So one thing that you mentioned that I will say is when, you know, PE is not a classroom. You know, classroom's pretty contained. You can normally hear everything that's going on. In a gym, you can't do that. So I suggest, and this is just my suggestion, if you're doing a PE teacher and you're sitting in this corner and they're always all the way in that corner, get up and walk and be able to listen. You know, stand behind the students, be able to listen what that teacher is saying. Because they could be over there in the other corner, they could be giving feedback or stating their objectives, and you might not hear it. So that would be my suggestion on that. And with the unannounced observations, it's just that communication beforehand, like at the beginning of the year, you know, every day your objectives need to be posted. And in the pacing guides and everything they already have, it's already written for them. So there's no reason, really. Just having that conversation prior to. And giving them the ability of having something to write it on, be it, you know, those like sticky notepad papers that they can put on the wall, something so it can be visual.
When do they do their testing? Like first of 9 weeks, mid 9 weeks?
Middle school,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
should be
just
the
asking.
beginning and the end of every
Yeah, so
quarter,
if
semester,
I'm
whatever
going,
you're on.
Like, I'm gonna go Friday, I've already got it announced, I'm going Friday, so they should not be tested.
I mean, I wouldn't know anymore,
Are you
but
talking about like the height and weight?
Yeah, like, no.
Well, and that, because the PEP grant is gone, they are not required to do
Okay.
height and weight any more than once a year.
I just
Some
feel-
of them might,
I just feel like
because they
in
use
December
it.
they were, like, before we got out for Christmas, I
Mhm.
noticed that they were, so I just asking.
I mean, if they're
Yeah,
still
it's-
doing fitness testing, I would assume that they do it at the beginning and the end.
Okay. I know, maybe they did like a mid 9 weeks check.
I mean, I wouldn't know. That would be a conversation to have with them.
yeah, and they're not required to, so
Okay.
that would be completely up to the individual teacher.
Because, you know, sometimes we get in the problem with, assessment, testing that happen pretty quick. That's one I'm asking.
Gotcha.
And then two, I was gonna say too, in my opinion, is the refinement, that's gonna help us in going in, questioning, problem solving, thinking, okay, before we go in, if that's one of their refinements, I mean, it's just a good thing to kind of talk.
Yeah.
Good conversation piece.
And that post-conference too,
You know.
and in that post-conference too, have that conversation with them. You know, really talk to them about, make them feel like you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes teachers have a struggle with that, and not just PE teachers, it can be classroom teachers too, that they struggle with thinking, well, they don't know what they're doing, or they don't understand what I do. But I think if you go in there with the knowledge and the concept of what they're doing, that's really going to help them and make them feel more comfortable.
It's good conversation piece.
Yeah.
And we have to understand when we go in and evaluate that it's not always that verbalization, when you think about questioning and talking back and forth, getting that feedback, it's more of a visual, because that essential question, what they're doing, we're gonna visually see where they're kind of really answering the question.
Right.
If they show you like hopping on one foot or something like that.
Yeah. A lot of, I mean, the majority of the stuff they're doing is psychomotor.
Yeah.
And you're going to see the assessments through the students actually doing what they're doing, rather than pencil and paper, which I know that's still on the rubric. I'm glad they moved it to a 5 instead of a 3, but, you know, and that's something they struggle with too. They don't like that they have to have a writing piece. And I try to tell teachers across the state, I was like, you don't have to, you only have to if you want a 5. And they're like, well, I want a 5. And I'm like, well, then you gotta figure it out. But don't expect like a written piece in gym to be the same as it would be in the classroom. Especially in some of your situations, you might have 2 classes in there, pass out pencils and paper to 60 kids. Can get kind of crazy.
Actually, that kind of made me think of a question I had. So like ours it's actually 3 classes are all together at the same time. And would it be, I don't know the word here, kosher maybe, I don't know, to go in and evaluate them as a team, or even, I mean, like, if you do 3 in 1, basically, I mean, because they're all
Not this semester, just.
meshing and, you know, that's right, yeah.
I would suggest not evaluating all of your teachers together, because you don't know who might have done the work.
Okay. See, this last time when I just evaluated one of our teachers, before you and you know, they were working as a team and all that, which is good, right? You know, that's what you want to see. But it was almost as though I was taking into account someone else's part for him.
Yeah, I understand, and it's
He didn't do it, they did, but it was done.
Yeah,
So,
so my response to that would be, if it's if it is an announced visit, make sure that teacher knows, you know, I want to see you teaching, I'm focusing on you. If it's an unannounced, you kind of just gotta go with the flow, or when you walk in for the unannounced, say, you know, I'm here to evaluate you. And so maybe that teacher will take the lead. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I tried not to, barely ever did I try to do some of them together, because you never know who's
well, I
actually
didn't want to,
done the
but like I
work.
said, I was at the same time, it was like, so do I count that? Because that happened, but they didn't do it, they did it.
Right.
You know.
And I mean, that might happen still a little bit, especially when they're co-teaching.
Yeah, and I figured, you know, that was a sign of good teaching if they could
Right.
utilize their strengths and, you know, because Because it wasn't like he wasn't doing anything. He
Right.
was doing his fair share, it's just they were working as a unit.
Right.
a
And that
really
is a
Nice
positive.
seamless unit.
Yeah.
you know, so.
That is a good thing. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, Kara Bishop, assistant principal at Wright.
Okay.
I got
Awesome.
stuck in traffic and then my car died. But
Oh,
I was right in
no.
front of my husband's shop, so.
Oh, gosh.
That was lucky. I know, it was crazy. I was like, well, here you go, my car doesn't work, give me yours, see, I gotta go.
Too funny.
So, very sorry.
That's okay. So what other questions? Comments? I really think conversation is key. And being able to get them to open up to you also. Because they need to know that you support them and that, you care about them too. Because I think a lot of PE teachers, sometimes think, well, they just care about the classroom stuff. That's all they care about. That's what their job is tied to, yada, yada, yada. And they just come in, do my evaluations and leave and give me a score. Well, we don't want that to happen. We want them to be a crucial part of this process. And I think that's important. And I think everyone sitting here thinks it's important or you want to be here. So what other questions do you have? So what about in the planning rubric? What are you seeing in that? Do you see them struggling in their planning rubric still? Or also?
I evaluated that, so person that she did a really good job. She had games, having groups, having a lot of things that played a game called touchdown. So she had a lot of feedback, good feedback, ask questions.
Mhm.
She's well organized. I mean, kids came in and of course, like they're saying, it's an announced operation, so she should be on top of that.
Right.
She did a good job of just all that.
I'm going to actually be observing mine tomorrow, and it's announced. So I had my pre-conference with her today. So one thing that I noticed and just in a conversation with her today was that when I talked to her about how she was going to assess the objective being taught, and the skill, she just said through observation.
Which is,
Going to be pretty consistent.
right.
Because you said they're not going to necessarily do the written.
Right. But there should not only be observation, but question and answering, that type of thing. If she isn't going to do a written piece, they could even do a quick, like as they're walking out the door, ask them a question, like a one-word answer question to get feedback on.
Yeah, but it makes more sense when you told me earlier that they really need to hit those components. And so that's where your questioning could come in for sure,
Yes,
or anything else, if you are truly hitting those other components and not just teaching a motor skill,
correct,
and that's it.
correct.
So what I'm gathering is if you truly want to hit all the indicators on the rubric, you really need to make sure you do all four of those components.
Yeah.
Because if you really concentrate just on one, then you're going to miss something else.
Right, and some of the other components, like the fitness content piece,
Mhm.
that's where they can get a lot of that more cognitive
Yeah, mhm.
responses
Mhm.
rather than just psychomotor skill-based responses.
I was impressed with one of our PE teachers when it was a game, it was the wiffle ball, there was teams, they were doing, but they rotated the teams a certain amount of times, so when they were not in the field, they were working on their wellness, they had a wellness journal that they had to, certain key essential questions they had to answer to them. So those pieces were starting, now it makes more sense to me, having seen the four pieces that you just talked about, that she was making those pieces happen.
Yeah.
So that makes it a clearer explanation of it, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think that does help, and I mean, my biggest thing is just have that communication with your PE teachers, is have that open communication. In those pre-conferences, PE teachers, most of them, some of them, maybe not all of them, are gonna be really reserved and not nervous, but just reserved. And sometimes maybe you just need to pull that conversation out. Like when I would go in and do pre-conferences, I was like, I want you to tell me everything I'm gonna see in this lesson. Like go through your entire lesson, tell me everything I'm gonna see. Because I wanna know before I get in there, so we can talk about it. Well, do you really think this is gonna work, or that gonna work? Well, how could we, talk, what are your questionings gonna be? How are you gonna get higher order thinking? Those sort of things. So I mean, I think conversation is key. What other questions? What about environment?
Some of it's got tough, you don't have 21, student work display, so,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard sometimes. There's some of the work that kids do, getting on kids when they're out of line, and they still do those kinds of things.
Right.
That's what I was talking about with Sweeney, though, what she did, was she kind of had to do some individual activities, and she was talking to them about the different ranges of intensity, low, middle, high, and she would stop them and ask them. That's what I like about what she did, is it's relevant for you.
Right.
You know, if I want to go hard one day, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
If I want to go medium,
Here's some
it
things.
was
I
just
can do.
making it relevant. It was a fifth grade girls class. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and she just had ample chances to give back, feedback.
Yeah.
To the teacher. I mean,
And I think PE teachers are probably some of the best at giving feedback, because they're always walking around, telling their kids, good job, or here, let's try this, or do this, or, you got really great form, or, your skip is on point. We're really good at giving feedback. I mean, that's something.
I think it's more obvious in that setting too, who's not doing, I mean, like, an English teacher, you can't really tell who's writing well and who's not from standing up in front of the classroom.
Right.
But in a PE class, you can see those that are like, not really doing, not really even trying, or not pushing themselves, or, that right there, that's not right,
Yeah.
easier to identify.
Identify.
I was talking to actually one of the PE teachers today, and just talking about how we want them to understand and take some of these skills with them later in life. I mean, you can only play a team sport so long. So, that's kind of what I think we need to get out of PE too, is,
Yeah.
keep, whether it's walking, running, going to the gym.
I was impressed with the plan of how it's laid out from elementary to high school.
Yeah.
And Coach was able to talk to me a lot about, well, this is what we're doing now in elementary, and here's how it leads to what they do in middle school, and here's how it leads to what they do in high school, and here's how that leads to life, which is exactly what you were talking about. It was just
Yeah.
awesome to see, and there was a lot of academic pieces to it that, I don't remember that kind of stuff. Of course, I guess you don't remember that as a kid, but there were a lot of academic pieces to it, and the kids really didn't know what he was talking about. You could tell it was something that had been consistent through the pacing of, the actually learning what they needed to know to be healthy for life. And
Yeah.
I mean, they really understood that and how it affects you emotionally and physically, all of those things. I just thought that was really neat. The only thing that I really struggled with, I guess exactly what you said. Once I talked to him, and then I saw it, the questions that I called one of y'all before, I can't remember who now, before, and I was just like, what do I expect, But once I talked to him and once I saw the lesson and we were able to talk about it, I actually felt a lot more like, okay, I can see how this, how this would fit into there. But he did have one station where they were just, they were kind of just like reading these cards, like learning about, I can't remember, it's been a while back since I did his, but they were learning about, I think, when you're doing exercises, like how it affects your heart and all this kind of. So they were reading these cards about that kind of stuff, and that seemed to be the group that he didn't like check in with really, or didn't like really teach. And so in the beginning, when we talked, he was saying, like, I'm going to be working with this group, and everybody else is going to be practicing these things, and they're going to kind of rotate through. But then once the lesson was there, he was really just rotating the groups, and that group was just kind of sitting over there reading as they did. So I was like, well, how much, because as a teacher, I'm thinking, like in the classroom, okay, that's your small group. That's your small group that you're working with them, that's the teacher group, everybody else is out there practicing, and you've got your eyes, going and kind of watching. But then it's like, well, how realistic
Is
that he's, that he would spend his time every time with that group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be a struggle. What I would suggest is, because I'm assuming they were just sitting there, standing there reading, actually be having them do some type of physical activity while they're reading. So
Right.
they're actually moving still instead of sitting still and not,
Yeah.
we all know what happens when kids sit still for
Right.
when they're
Yeah,
going on
I
a big
mean-
moving.
I mean, I really was just impressed with the materials that you guys had provided for them. I think the entire program for K-12 is,
And I mean, I will tell you, you guys are a unique star here across the state. I mean, I don't know anybody else in the state that I've visited so far, and I've gone to over 60 districts in a year and a few months that I've been with the state, and I have not seen anyone that has a K-12 model and has the pacing guides that bring them from kindergarten through high school. So, I mean, you guys are a unique star here. And I think what you were saying, Doug, about it being, for a lifetime, it is true. And whenever they're at the department and talking about college and career readiness and thinking, I need to get them to teach them how to be healthy and how to be fit and how to take care of their diets when they go to college so they don't, gain that extra 20 pounds their first year. And so I think here in Maury County, the students here are going to have the benefit of that. And I think the teachers are going to have a big impact on their lives in that manner. What other questions, comments, concerns? I know this was very informal, and that's kind of how I wanted it to be, because I just wanted to get what you guys wanted out of me. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to put my contact information up so you can copy it down. I am, maybe. I'm going to put my email address up and my cell phone number. You can email me, text me anytime, call me, whatever you need. If you ever have a question, I'm here. This position at the State Department had been vacant for almost 7 years before I was hired, and it's actually in the law that they have to have this position, so it's interesting to know that it's been vacant that long. So anything you need, if you ever have questions about this, or your PE teachers have questions and you might not have the answer, feel free to contact Lori or contact me, and we'll hopefully.
Did you push one of those buttons on the remote for your, I think it's your projector?
No, it's my computer.
Oh.
State computer.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yes.
That's something tied to team, but then not tied to team, so
Yes.
you might have to jump in here. I know that with the grant and the grant being gone, that they're not having to do as much, but I actually, honestly, I do not know what they are totally responsible for. So I don't know if you're getting everything you need.
Okay, as far as measurements,
I don't know anything.
the only thing that we require is the height and weight and the pacer test. And
And that's at the beginning of the year, and that's it.
they can do it
They can do it
anytime.
anytime they want to.
Anytime. We asked them to try to get it done by December, just because Dawn has to compile all that into the state spreadsheet, and, but they really can do it anytime. And, we suggested that they continue, because some of them are using some of those different measurements from the grant to help grading the kids. And, so they could, but they're not required. It is up to them.
And where can we get, I would just have to be able to see, just because I would like to see what it looks like, kind of that model of the pacing of what is expected for
All of
you know,
us,
you know
and I
what I'm
brought this to make sure
They
that
all
y'all
have
would
one.
see it. Put it on the camera. This is the physical education curriculum guide that all of our teachers do have. We can make copies, for folks as well if you all want your own copy. We don't mind doing that at all. But it's got pretty well everything in here that you need.
And every teacher has one.
Yes.
So it's in every school.
Yes, it's in
Did you
every,
say it is on the Quinetta School Health webpage or not?
it is
No.
not.
Okay.
We don't have it electronically. We could, it's a matter of scanning it. But,
So if we want one, just contact you and ask for it.
yeah.
Just one for our school.
Actually, you take this as an extra.
Merry Christmas, you won the
Yeah,
prize!
there's your prize. But yeah, definitely, if y'all, want a copy, we're more than happy to provide that.
I'm just gonna tell you my number and my email address because state computers love them. So my email is Christine, CHRISTINE Hollifield, HOLLIFIELD @tn.gov. I'm the PEPA specialist. Yeah. And then my cell phone number is 615-840-4481. And like I said, feel free to email me, call me, text me. I'm better at email and text because if I'm in meetings or whatever, I normally can't answer the phone, but I can respond to a text or an email pretty quick. All right, any other questions, comments, suggestions? Thank you guys for taking the time to come out here and to listen to me blab a little bit. I appreciate all that you guys are doing for your PE teachers, and I know that they appreciate it too.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Physical education, physical activity. Yep. So I do everything, 90-minute law and all that fun stuff. I am not the audit checker. I will leave that up to Chris Steffi. That is not my job.
We want you to
What?
come out and do the audit. You come do the audit.
You want me to come